What is driving the growth? Honestly, the biggest thing is we are reinventing the title industry from scratch. In the next 5 years, the whole process will be completely digital, end to end.
Welcome back to Real Investing, where we talk about real investing for the everyday investor. Tim Harridge with my buddy
Ryan Harper.
And our special guest, Megan Harris.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad you're here. You just happened to be in Dallas for another event.
Yeah, we were here for Collective Genius this week, which was honestly one of the best events we've been to. Ton of great energy in that room and a lot of collaboration happening. So, yep.
They do it right, and they've been doing it a long time. So title sucks. Title's boring. No one wants to pay for it. Investor friendly means how cheap can you do it? Why would you get in this business?
People ask me that more often than you'd think, and I always say I'm the only person that you'll meet who just freaking loves title and is just obsessed with all the details. So, I started off in technology and used to sell software to title companies, and I used to have to go and sit next to their people and watch how they did work, and they're getting phone calls, they're sending wires, and there's fraud all over the place and paperwork, and really was beating my head against a wall and just thought there had to be a better way to do it. It's the most important transaction in people's lives, whether it's your business and it's how you put food on the table for your family and the people you care about, or it's your home, which is, as important. And, just frankly got sick of title companies telling me that nothing was ever going to change. So, yeah.
One thing you said right there, I think it's important that we hammer it every time we hear it, is because in the real estate investor world, especially the guys we've talked to today, who's doing hundreds, if not thousands of deals, sometimes annually, whatever, it doesn't matter, just a ton of deals. But the fact that for most people, 99% of the population, it is the most important transaction they will ever do in their life.
Yeah.
And I think most people, we lose sight of that.
Yep.
And I'm glad that you just said that.
Yeah, we talk about that with our team all the time, especially when you get into high volume. You kind of forget that one closing or, that one wire you sent, that changes somebody's life, no matter what the situation is. So, we hammer that in and really try to embrace that with every closing that we handle.
I always, at RCN, where I'm still on the board, and at Ternus, and really everywhere I've worked with investors, I always say, never forget the people behind the paper, because we as service providers can really get focused on the mortgages we need to generate or the title policy. It becomes like a paperwork game.
Yeah.
And to that point, oftentimes there's a little old lady that's sitting there with a U-Haul, and she's homeless now for the first time in her life, and she needs that money and needs to be protected and needs to go on. So I love that. But also, I look forward to a day where I don't have to say the people behind the paper, where I get to say the people behind the blockchain or the Bitcoin or whatever it is. When you and I first were introduced to each other a year or so ago by Terry Summers, he was like, this Empora Megan is a whiz. She is changing the industry, huge focus on digital. How is that going?
It's going great. It's going great. Like you said, frankly, real estate is one of the last industries to come into the 21st century. We've kind of been catching up, hobbling along, while, much bigger markets have already made big strides. And, to use a Wayne Gretzky, paradigm here, you got to skate where the puck is going, right? And people just expect things to be fast and easy. And so real estate has to catch up. It's going well because at the end of the day, people want things to be digital. And yes, there is a component of real estate that is very relationship based, and I believe that will always be the case, of course. But frankly, we have, over half the people who get invited to our site actually log in and use it for the things that we need them to do. Most people are shocked when they hear that, because they imagine that people really want the hand holding and the cardboard keys, and it's like we got to look in the mirror as an industry and really ask ourselves, is that the case? Because the rest of the world is saying no.
The cardboard keys, the big thing. I just closed on my own.
Oh, yeah. Or the big checks or all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because at Ternus, since we loan our own cash, we don't actually have to worry about what the warehouse lender says or what the securitization people say.
That's nice.
And I talk to the attorneys, though, and I'm like, why can't I let them sign the note digitally with an online notary? and it drives me nuts. And I'm going to be the guy that solves it. And they say, well, the note has to be signed with wet ink. And when I say why or ask why, no one can answer. They're just like, that you have to keep the original note and it has to be signed with wet ink. And I'm like, why? Have you ever gotten an answer?
Yeah, I have gotten an answer for this. And frankly, I'll be honest, the consumer side of the business has made a lot more progress than the investor side. It's because they're easier to foreclose on, right? And I'm not an expert in foreclosure law, I'm not an attorney, but it's easier to foreclose on if you have the actual document, and obviously the secondary markets require it. But at the end of the day, there are vaults, and MERS has a whole system set up to solve this problem. And again, the consumer industry has started to make progress against this. It's the investor side of the business that has not caught up. And you better be one of the first, because we need somebody to really champion this. And Empora is ready to partner with someone to make it happen, because that's what people want.
You heard it here. No, I'm just. Yeah. I still actually have that thing called a fund that I got to get permission from, but it's our own cash. So I don't know. It gets so frustrating because there's so much work that goes up to the closing, and just like you, I know that the title agents, the escrow agents, get all the blame, right? Like, even if you're waiting on the insurance, why don't you have it, right? I'm not the insurance agent, I'm the title agent. How do you solve for customer experience in a business where so much of your performance relies on other people's performance?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Honestly, I think the first thing is it comes down to hire the best people you can find, right? You have to hire people with the right mindset who want to lean into the service sides and can really take pride in the product of their work, so they don't get caught up when people do, blame them for some of that stuff. So you got to hire the best people you can find. We have a great team. Some of them are here. Thanks, guys, for being here. And so then I think beyond that, it's really being proactive in communication, right? So the thing that we think about is, how do we send out an automated text or a message reminder for every single thing that we do that people care about, so that when they say, hey, my seller says nobody's talked to them in 4 days, it's like, well, we sent you a text 4 days ago that said we did. So that's just not true. So, just really focusing on the things that are in our control and communicating them is really the only way to win, because we're never going to stop people from, blame.
We were closing a big portfolio loan in Ohio, and they were the title company. And since I was the contact on the lender, I was getting text message updates as well. But I'm not supposed to be the guy from the lending company getting the text messages. And I had to call Gina, who works with Megan, and I was like, can you get someone to turn this off? Because at my job as just the president, I don't need a text to know that the title commitment is in. We've got insurance. But when I rewind the clock to when I was the buyer and the guy that was boots on the ground trying to get a deal done, or if it was my personal residence, damn right I want that text.
Well, back then it was, we had to call the title company, because again, it's especially when you're working in volume, you're like, you got the boss man saying, hey, what's the status of 123 Main Street? He's like, I don't know. Let me call the title company. And then it's like herding cats. And then you got a title company that's got files everywhere, and then they got to research it. So being proactive in that communication is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, so focus on the things that are in our control, and hire the best people we can find, and build a business that can pay them well, and, keep building.
So when I first got in the business, you would get a yellow pad and write down all the properties that you had open, and then you would get in your car or truck and drive to the title company and wait for the escrow officer to be out of a closing. You'd sit down. Well, I need to ask about 123 Main Street. Where are we there? And you'd have to fill it out. And then okay, what about 124 Main Street?
That's great.
But I just remember that because, and now you guys all have these portals and all the email hell though. How do you get out of email hell?
To be honest, we have a site that brings everybody to the same place, where we say, this is your source of truth to get updates. Go here. Ariana will respond to you within 15 minutes if you go here and you put a message in the box, right? And then they do that. And we've really trained people to get their information through our site, and that has moved a lot of people out of these crazy email threads that just end up nowhere.
how did you make the Forbes list? You knew I was going to talk about this. Because this
Who did you? Is it one of those like pay to play?
No,
or is
Forbes
it
30
actual?
under 30.
Okay.
And somebody said something to her at a conference. We're sitting in this lobby bar after a 2-day conference, and she was tired, clearly tired. Like, it'd been a long time. And somebody said something like, "How old are you really?" Or "What are you worth?" I don't remember what it was. And she just goes, "Check Forbes."
Wow.
I was like, it was the most.
Is that the douchiest thing you've ever seen in your life?
It was the most boss move ever. This dude was trying to big dog her, and he walked away limping. It was.
Did you know what you were doing?
It just came out.
So I don't have anywhere close to that. But the douchiest thing I've ever said was I was wearing nice jacket, and they're like, "Hey, that's a nice jacket. What size is it?" Like, I don't know. It's custom.
Yeah.
And then as I said, I'm like, oh my God, I just said the douchiest thing I've ever said in my life. No, not anywhere as cool as check Forbes. But I mean, you could say Google me, but check Forbes is way better than Google me.
Because anyone can get a Wikipedia page.
Right.
I mean, there's only 30 people on that list.
We've interviewed Forbes before.
We did?
Not we, but Paul and I.
I was like, I must have
Steve
been.
Forbes, we met him. Anyway, that's as close as I can get to this
Shameless
conversation.
plug.
How many
Yeah.
states are you guys in now?
Right now we're in 7 states. The Midwest is really our core base, and we actually just hired a team here in Texas. So we're super excited about that. If you do work in Texas, Empora is now here. So we're really stoked about that. That'll be probably our biggest growth market in 25, and we'll be nationwide by end of 26.
I know a guy that buys some houses in Texas you should talk to.
Nice. I know a money guy in Texas. Does your guy need money?
I don't know anybody in Texas.
Okay.
I know a media guy in Texas.
Yeah,
there
nice.
we go.
So, nationwide by 2026, what is driving the growth?
What is driving the growth? Honestly, the biggest thing is real estate investors who are really looking to grow their businesses. I say all the time, it doesn't matter if you do 10, 50, or 200 transactions a year. If you're an investor who's really looking to scale and grow, we're the right partner for you because we help people standardize. So if we deliver them a great experience, they grow, they wholesale to other investors who meet us, and then it kind of just takes off from there. But we really hire teams in core markets and have boots on the ground and just build a really great brand. And I say that, real estate is not all relationship. Obviously, it won't always be, but for us, that's really where our growth comes from.
What's driving your growth? Because I feel and I'm going to show my lack of awareness, but it seems like not many title company people are in masterminds to grow. They're in the masterminds to get clients, but maybe not learning how to scale. But if I'm connecting dots, if you're in Collective Genius, you're in these masterminds, and you're also like, hey, we're trying to be in multiple states by 2026, there's something there bigger than most typical like title companies or escrow agents or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's our long-term vision to reinvent how this process works from scratch, right? So that's our North Star. We are reinventing the title industry from scratch. In the next 5 years, the whole process will be completely digital end to end. And so that drives us, right? To do that, we have to have a really large footprint, and that's something that most title companies just frankly don't have the resources to aspire to. So that's something that we drive towards, and it's going to require us to automate all of that in all the states that we're in.
Are you so good that you're going to put transaction management companies out of business?
That's not our focus. Our focus is to automate
She
the title
avoided that.
process.
Was a duck in the dodge. Whoa!
That's a great question, and I'm going to get back to that after I answer this seven-part
to be honest,
answer.
no, that's not our goal. Transaction management businesses, frankly, that's just not our business. Some investors have TC in-house, and that's great. And if they use a transaction coordination company, that's great. I don't really care. What I care about is automating the title process because that's the bedrock of all real estate.
What? Okay, we're going to really make fun of the customer right now. What?
Aren't you the customer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I know how screwed up I am, so I've got to be the poster boy for needs help.
Yes.
If you had to pick one thing that you see these real estate investors do over and over again that just drives your team wild, like they're like, can't we do more retail? What is it?
I've got 2 things. The
Okay.
first thing is calling your service providers back to back to back. I'm assuming you guys see that on the lender side. At the end of the day, we have to meet the need that they have in a given moment. But if your loan officer, your title person tells you that they'll get back to you in 30 minutes, don't call back in 7, because you're now just poisoning the well of the relationship. And then I also think the second thing is just bigger picture. I've had this thought. I think real estate investors think too short term about their relationships. They're looking for the next deal and the next check and the next closing, and they burn bridges to just try to get to the next thing. And, it's not good to soil your name like that in any market. So I really think that real estate investors need to think more about, how they want to build their brands as business owners too.
That is so huge, because like we talk about that offline, online all the time, but how your name, especially in this business, carries so much. And it's like, you don't know who that person talks to.
Yeah.
Like, yes, the cameras are rolling now, but when the cameras are off, what secrets, what skeletons are we talking about? You know? And like, if you burn a bridge, you're not just burning that bridge, you're burning every bridge that bridge touches.
Of course.
And people don't realize that, how relationships matter, especially in this business, more than most.
Yeah, it works both ways. If you treat people well, that has great network effects. If you treat people poorly, people will find out. So I think that's the biggest thing that really bothers me, is they bring that energy to their interactions with everybody. And it's just like, come on.
It has been well over a decade since I've ever complained or even mentioned an escrow fee or a fee on a settlement statement from a title company. It's because I guess the first 10 years of my business, I was kind of copying what other people did. And, investor-friendly title company meant which one will charge me 0 for my side and 400 for the buyer side or the other side. And then I just realized, I don't know what it was, you can't ask someone to work for free and demand world-class service.
No, it's the business Venn diagram of, you can have your products or services cheap, fast, or have high quality, and you can only have 2 of the 3, right? So it's like, you can have cheap, you can have fast, you can have high quality. Pick 2.
Well, so. And by the way, you must have watched the show, because I always say there's good, fast, and cheap.
There you
and
go.
You only get 2. And I'm good, I'm fast, and I'm not cheap.
Yeah.
And don't ask me about my damn rates.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's funny because like I'm SMU EMBA program, and they brought that up, but they used different words, like they use like the whole the $20 words, the $100 words. And it took me like 5 minutes, like, oh, we're talking about good, fast, and cheap. Got it. But it took me a minute to process. And for the life of me, I can't think of what the words were. But they were like, instead of like 4-letter words, they were like,
bigger words.
They were them college words.
That character count was way too much.
Yeah, I was like, what are we talking about here?
But
it's universal.
It's what I actually said it on stage last night. We're taught that they don't meet our emotional needs, so we need to ask for more, and we don't know how to ask for more, so our brain converts it to price. And if someone calls, and when I help a salesperson at Ternus, and the first question is, what's your rates? I ask, well, when do you need to close? Because that's really important, right? And then, well, yeah, next week. Oh, okay. And then if they say, well, what are your fees? It's like, do you have all your paperwork together? Like, they're really trying to figure out, will you function on time at a high level of service and not yank me around?
Yeah.
But they don't know how to ask that.
Yeah.
So they say, what are your escrow fees? It's like, how about like, do you ever have to wonder what's going on with your transaction? Would you like that?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And I think, so I used the example on an episode a couple weeks ago, when Coke advertises, it's all about the real thing, or maybe they show the Christmas gatherings or whatever, but you'll never see a national Coke commercial that has a price listed, right? They don't say, we're the low cost, soda. Nike, you never see a price on any of their national ads.
Yeah.
Apple will not advertise a price, but then when AT&T is trying to sell the Apple product, they'll mention the price, right? I think the more we can do as business owners to connect with what people really need, like, our profits will be better, but then we can provide the service that they really want.
Yeah, I mean, investors should. It's a big reason why Empora works with investors, right? Because I knew going into this that investors would be the hardest group to work with in a lot of ways, but they're rinse and repeat, and our incentives are aligned. They want the process to be as easy and as seamless as possible, whereas some other groups in real estate are just not quite as forward thinking, if you will. And investors should just bite the bullet and say, we do want things to be faster and easier, and that means I'm going to pay a premium. And the whole market should just reconcile with that.
I'm going to write a contract with 13 heirs and 22 affidavits of heirship, and I need like a rocket scientist to help me figure this out. So if your fee is $650 instead of $450, awesome.
Well, you brought up the pricing thing, and it was interesting because a couple weeks back I was in a lecture with one of the VPs from Frito-Lay. And one of the questions was brought up, why do some chips have a price and some chips don't?
Yeah.
The ones that have prices on, those are the budget options. And the only reason there are prices on there is to remind you that it's cheaper than the other one. And it's only for the budget people. And I didn't think about it until just now.
You're getting your money's worth with that
shit,
MBA,
right?
man.
No kidding, right? Well, I mean, it's $135,000. I bet it. But again, it was just like
you did ask them about the price when you started that process, right?
Well, I was like, can I put this on a loan? And their answer was yes. But again, though, I was like, it wasn't really relevant to then until this conversation now about, oh, that's so true about how, like, if there's a price on it, it's you're talking to a specific avatar, a demographic. Whereas people that don't really care about the price, you don't need to put the price out there.
Yep.
So you only gave me two things. I want to now go to the other side. What are maybe some common traits that you see really high quality clients exhibit?
Yes, high quality clients. The first thing is that they care about their reputation with their sellers. They care about their seller experiences and how their clients speak about their brand. And they're the people who are coming to us saying, hey, you know, this seller had this issue with this notary or this signing or whatever. How can we make that better next time? And we're hearing that feedback loop. And that matters because obviously that seller is going and leaving them a 5-star review or not. And I can say consistently, our top performing people who have continued to transact through the ups and downs of the past 18 months are the ones who are leaning into that. So that's the first thing. And then I'd say the second thing would be people who have actually invested in their TC processes, whether it's through a TC partner or, you know, on staff. They just stay more organized, their stuff is more together, and they're just building more predictability, frankly, into their transactions. So it is as wash, rinse, and repeat as it can be. And then I'd say the third thing is honestly the ones that are buttoned up. They have their operating agreements, they get their business accounts, they actually think about their transactions like a business, and they have set it up that way. And they don't avoid the fact that there is a little bit of, you know, paperwork involved in being a business owner. So I'd say it's those three things. And then, you know, just overarching what I said before, the ones who care about relationships, right? Like the ones who are, you know, supportive of their vendors. You know, Tommy Har is a good example of somebody in Columbus who's always propping up his vendors. He's throwing events all the time where he invites all of his vendors and he says, these are the people I use, work with them. And his company's built a really great brand because of it. So I'd say all of that.
It's funny, as a lender, I get the same thing. And it was a couple months ago, a buddy of mine texted me. He's like, hey, we were supposed to close this week and I haven't heard from Ternus. Big red flag, right? I, of course, do the monster business owner thing where I ruin everyone's morning. We need to figure out what the hell's going on.
Never done that.
Huh?
I've never done that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, me neither.
We never completely disrupt the workflow and avoid the chain of command and all those other things we talk about we were going to do.
Because the process only matters for you guys.
Right. And
it's been 3 hours.
It was just funny. Like the loan officer was so defensive. He's like, I'm so sorry, Tim. I'm so sorry, Tim. But he never signed the application. And I was like, what? He goes, no, look, I sent it to him this day. I sent the DocuSign. I sent him a text the next morning to see if he had any questions. I saw he viewed it, so I knew he got it. And I followed up the next day, and he never signed it. I just figured he wasn't closing. He never did anything else. We never heard back from him. It's
Clearly
fine.
your guy's fault.
We're not going to chase you at that point. But then, like the next week, he's like, no, I told him I was good to go with it. I was like, yeah, man, but you got to fill out the app. You have to apply for the loan that you intend to close. And then there's these things like contracts and title companies and bank statements.
What was the loan for? Like $200,000?
It was like $150,000, but still, I gotta
yeah. I'm good for it, right? Yeah.
I gotta look at your LLC documents and make sure you own that. And
I think people lose sight, especially in this business.
I haven't heard from you. It's like, no, you haven't. We didn't pester you.
I think they lose sight that $150,000 is a lot of freaking money. They're like, oh yeah, just give me the money, right?
Well, that's why I corrected Justin Colby when he was in that chair. He's like, I just called Tim and he wired the next day. I was like, no. We didn't just wire the next day. There were other steps, right?
Right.
Don't blow me up after this podcast like, hey, dude, I need $1 million tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, so hire a TC or a TC company to do that stuff for you if that's not your strength,
Right.
and get your stuff closed on time.
Well, it goes back to what you said right before that. You have to do your part.
Yeah.
You have to care. When you ask for certain deletions off the schedule and they send it back and tell you they can't do it, there has to be a conversation afterwards. If there's not, everyone assumes that you're okay, right? Like, I mean, it's certain endorsements as a lender we need. And there are certain title companies that are owned by big national brands that may or not be willing to provide a certain endorsement.
Yeah.
That's a no-go. We have to, like you talked about fraud. We use a service called Funding Shield. You guys are registered with them. And it just, okay, listen, there's a lot of shady title companies out there. Recently, we had a title company that was not licensed in the state of Texas and their E&O policy had lapsed. Had we closed on that deal, the customer would have still owed me $150,000. They just would not have had a security interest or an insurance policy against that. Like, personal guarantee wise, I'm still suing your ass, right? Because you owe me the money. So, like, getting a cheap title company because, oh, so-and-so can do it and they say Texas is fine. There's a lot of jokers out there, and the more the economy softens, the more people, well, one thing I found, I've got all these title company nightmares through Funding Shield because investors, back to the beginning, they pick the cheapest title company.
Yep.
And the cheapest title company, you would imagine it's probably a surprise, they're cheap. So in this case, they were licensed in Texas, but they had let their state franchise taxes lapse, which put their LLC in a forfeiture stature, which meant their E&O was invalid. So again, if they had made a huge mistake, my loan is not perfectible. I don't have insurance. The only recourse I have is, oh, Megan Harris, this personal guarantee you signed, that's still valid, right? So going cheap can also be a massive financial risk to the customer.
Yeah, and real estate's a really profitable business, right? So I just don't buy that, if you're worried about $500 or even $2,000 on a closing, there's probably a different problem that needs solved. Like picking a cheaper vendor is probably not the answer to your problem, to your point. So, yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, we talk about it all the time in your media business. You could sell someone Instagram reels for $10 a reel all day long and go out of business, right? Like, I mean, just, there's no way to, or you could use one of those stupid AI plugins that cut you off mid-sentence and the text doesn't match. And I mean, you could do that. But
well, I fight with my guys all the time, but like, how do we get more efficient? They're like, Ryan, because in my mind, it's like, oh, it takes 5-10 minutes to edit a reel. They're like, a shitty one. Like, but like a good one is 45 minutes to an hour and a half to 2 hours. Or if it's it could be 6 hours to edit just a reel. But even in a media business, I'm constantly weighing that and fighting that. And I have to get beat up. And again, it's just you got to speak truth to power. It's like, that's why hopefully I'm giving my team enough power to be like, no, you're wrong. And then hopefully I'm gracious enough to just be like, okay, you're right. You being the, dumbest guy in the room.
with all the financial risk you face as being the owner of the company and ensuring billions of dollars of transactions a year and being in multiple states and having all this licensing stuff, it makes me nervous even discussing it out loud. I don't know how you sleep at night.
Well, she did just go, what are we talking about now?
And you're a fairly young woman. How do you navigate the risk and balancing that with the growth? So this is like an entrepreneur, not a title question.
Sure. So I think the first thing is hiring people that I really trust to cover the risk, because I know that I'm not an expert in that. So I have a great team who has done this a lot longer than I have to cover that portion. So I sleep a lot better at night knowing that they are, the types of people who know the rules, follow the rules, dot the I's and cross the T's, and I can trust them to handle it. And then I think at the end of the day, kind of to your point before, a lot of entrepreneurs skip over the details because they feel like they should just move fast and skip over them. And it's like, no, let's actually invest in those details and then get back to growth. So when we're growing, we know that we're covered. So, we have really great E&O. We have like the top tier when most companies of our size would probably go, the lower amount. And, just investing up front in those things. And then just frankly, making sure that we have the right partners that we trust. So we're not partnering up with people along the way who could lead us to, a bad place, right? So we gate out investors who we've heard, not so great things about. So they're not bringing some of those problems to our door. And just try to make sure we've got the right checks and balances along the way. So we also have really great underwriters. First American backs us, and they obviously have been doing this a while, and a couple of others as well that have been really helpful to us. So the answer is fill the table around me with people who cover those bases, who know it a lot better than I do.
You just said something that kind of dovetails to something you said earlier, or what we were talking about earlier, about how relationships matter and treating people right matters. Even you as a servicer, if you hear something bad about somebody else, I mean, obviously you're probably going to do due diligence to verify, but it's going to prevent you from working with them, which I think is something that people really need to understand, that if your actions have consequences.
Yeah, my team's
even with
time
a
is
service.
valuable. Yeah, their time is valuable, and I want them to be crushing it and winning for the people that we want to help grow. So why would I bring that to our doorstep if we have reason to believe it's going to be a problem?
Yeah,
I'm always trying to tell the loan officers, because we will work with brokers, but it's not our core focus at all. And most of the brokers that contact us, I just tell them to call RCN because I've got a great relationship with their correspondent division. And my VP of sales, Brian Partridge, was mentioning the other day about some broker that was a friend of mine and people know. And the broker was mad that Brian told him that we weren't going to accept any more business from him. And I found it quite shocking. I'm like, Brian, why aren't we taking business from this guy? He goes, Tim, we pick who we work with. And the quality of files and the way he's talking to our people, that's not our game. And I said, good to go. And that was the end of it, right? Because we do have to empower our people to pick kind of who we let into our day.
Yeah, 100%, because they're the ones who might have to take that third phone call in a row. So.
Oh, I know. Or deal with a sloppy file or something that every other lender's already said no to.
Yes.
And a lot of times as a lender, what I find is the deal that is in a rush, that is missing some items, is probably the one you need to stop, take a deep breath, and really look at, because there's probably something wrong there.
Yeah.
So going back to you being, brought up that you were young, and you already alluded to that you hire really smart people. What do you think is your it factor that's allowed you to be successful at such a young age?
It's because I'm young. I don't know. No, just kidding.
I don't know any better.
Yeah, no, it's being on the Forbes list. No, of course not. It
No,
factor.
just check Forbes.
No,
the whole article's there.
It'll
Man.
tell you.
Yeah, it'll tell
I've
you.
talked more about my age today than ever before.
I find you impressive.
Thank you.
And it's a compliment.
Yes, thank you. So I think it's, I think it's determination. I'm this daughter of an immigrant and have just had work ethic drilled into me since day one. And we have a North Star, and I'm not going to stop until we get there. So I think that that's really it. And then at this point, I have a lot of great people around me on our team who really supported that and who have supported me. And that's a great support system to get to that goal. So it's a problem that I'm obsessed with, have been since 2016. And I just think that there is just so much opportunity if you automate the title process. The amount of data unlock that comes from that across all financial services is humongous. So I'm really excited for what we can do.
So, number one, I'm mad at Gina because I had no idea you opened up your Texas office. So let her know I'm mad at her.
I'm sure you can.
Oh, she left the room. Dadgummit. But what is, I'm assuming you have this, the mission of Empora Title?
Yeah, the mission of Empora is to make it easy to buy and sell real estate.
That's pretty lofty because it's not easy.
It's not easy at all. It's very, very hard. It's very hard. But TurboTax did this with taxes. Filing your taxes, dealing with the federal government is a scary thing, but everybody has to do it. And now it's way easier. I just used them for my taxes less than a year ago, and you can literally jump on and somebody will get on the phone with you and do your whole audit right there. And you can, wash your dishes while they're doing their thing. And that's how it should be, right? And so that's how it should be for real estate, and people should have confidence in the most important asset that they own.
You talked about earlier hiring people. Obviously, when you hire someone, you're responsible for them, and you have to manage them to some degree or lead them to other degrees, and sometimes do both. I'm lucky too at Ternus. I mean, we were at our offsite earlier this week, and I mentioned that I said, look around the table. There's no one here with less mortgage experience than me. And I've brought you guys on with over 100 years of mortgage experience to lead this team. So I don't call them the executive team. I don't call them the management team. I call them the leadership team. And as an entrepreneur, I think you can do this at any level, right? You can bring on, I don't care if you have a 2-person company, you can bring on someone that may intimidate you or know more about something than you. And I just encourage all the entrepreneurs to get this feeling, because today there was a loan that I'd put into default because of an insurance claim issue, and the customer cured it, but was trying to come out of default. And my VP of Ops texted me and said, hey, I'm going to need your decision on this. And I added Alicia, the controller, into the text thread so that she kind of had a witness kind of thing, because everybody knew that I had put it into default. And I just said, Lacey, you can make the determination about that property. Just let me know what you decide. No need to check back with me. Sent, put the phone back on airplane mode over here. 2 hours later, first off, an hour later, I tried to check my phone. I was like, oh my gosh, I got no emails and no text messages during that hour. Awesome. People are leaving me alone. Didn't realize it was still in airplane mode. So an hour after that, I turned it back on and saw the text. We decided this, this, and this. If you have any problems with it, let us know. Otherwise, it's a closed issue. All I had to do was like it and move on.
Yeah.
So there's an amazing power in investing in people that are better at it than you. And I'm thankful for all of you for watching.
What's the end goal?
To make real estate easy.
In all 50 states, in the entire globe?
Definitely in all 50 states. A lot of tech companies talk about going global long before they should. So when we fully automate this in the US, then we'll revisit going elsewhere.
And when you say we, do you mean we as in your team, or do you have partners on this, or is it like it's just you have angel investors? Like what?
Yeah, we're VC backed.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, we're VC backed. So Caffeinated Capital led our Series A, and they're absolutely great. Sci-Fi led our seed round. So yeah, my team primarily, and we'll continue to build partnerships with forward-thinking service providers who really want to build with us, right, and have similar visions. So
well, one of the things that we heard from Willie earlier was the and I'm going to say this quote probably badly just so I can remember it better, is rather have 20% of a watermelon versus 100% of a grape.
100%.
You know?
Yeah, that is definitely true.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's why I said it, just so I can remember it.
Well, that's all I got. I won't 50% of the watermelon, no, but I mean, I'll take.
I want the whole watermelon.
Yeah,
I want.
let's just get like a watermelon farm, and you can have 20% of one.
I just want a watermelon. I mean, what are we talking about?
I want the whole melon aisle.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want the store. Yeah,
Jesus Christ. I'm sorry we're running late. I'm so happy to hear you're in Texas. From all my experiences interacting with Empora at all the different levels, either as a lender or as my role at RCN, I've never met anyone that said anything bad about you. So in this business, that's pretty. That's a.
Buy me a drink. I'll tell you all the bad things about this guy.
Thank you for being here, Megan.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
See you next time.